everybody is having a wonderful holiday season and getting through Q4. Just a couple weeks left in 2023, and I can't believe it that we're already there. Kind of amazing. All right, let's see. Got a couple more folks coming in. It's great that we get to admit everybody as they come in. Oh. All right. Great. All right. I'm going to go ahead and just kick us off so we can get started because we actually have a lot to get through today. But welcome everybody to episode 5 of Sit Down with SymTrain. This week, we're going to be going over harnessing generative AI and how we're using that with coaching plans. So we want to really talk about the concepts behind kind of these different pieces of technology and the ways that people are using them specifically within the contact center, as well as a little bit about how SymTrain sees these items and what we're doing with them personally. So my name is Liz Powell. I am the VP of Customer Operations here at SymTrain. So I work with all of our existing customers from implementation, support, customer success, anything you're doing with the platform, I am probably involved in it. And luckily this week, I've got joining me Reece Lincoln. We lovingly refer to him as our AI guy, but he is our head of AI and machine learning with SymTrain. So welcome, Reece.
Awesome. Thanks, Liz. Yeah, no, happy to be here and happy to kind of talk about what we're doing at SymTrain for artificial intelligence and different machine learning applications. And we're really excited about what we're going to see in 2024.
Yeah, totally agree. Totally agree. So for a lot of our customers, we work with people that have a heavy influence, typically in the contact center, trying to train and coach agents at a really large scale on ever-changing types of conditions, what we're actually trying to get people to do, and just changing behaviors on a really, really consistent basis. So the concept of AI is not new to anyone, but using generative AI specifically is something that's being introduced more and more consistently in our world, in the contact center world, and kind of across different areas of the business. So when we look at the context here, generative AI helps you kind of build things from the beginning. It's helping you actually get a starting point, give a prompt, and get something back. We've all been familiar with ChatGPT. If you haven't played with it, not sure where you've been for the last year, but that's all good. So again, I'm here with Reece today, and Reece has a background in this area, and specifically kind of this is his expertise. So I want to start by just having Reece give a much better description than I just did of what really is generative AI, and where do you see that as being applicable to the contact center?
Yeah, no, that's great. Because generative AI, it's become very, very popular recently. And, it is a subset of artificial intelligence technology that essentially just describes different types of machine learning systems capable of generating anything from text, images, code, or kind of any type of content. So usually this is done in different types of prompting formats, similar to kind of what most people know from platforms such as what Liz mentioned in OpenAI interface. But, not only is it just generating text, it really does encompass just creation of content, in kind of the example that we've used with simulations. It's, you want to create the script, but you also want to create all other components of the simulation and kind of do that in a informative and intelligent way.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of what we're excited about with leveraging it inside of our own space is that, call center data is just so rich in information to be able to kind of translate that into actionable insights using generative AI, being able to analyze, how agents are performing, what calls are driving the highest performance metrics, this kind of conversational dialogue and evaluation metrics from AQA, quality assurance. It gives us measurable outcomes that are more quantitative so that we can then translate that to create those insights for generative AI and kind of other machine learning applications too. It's not only, contained within generative AI. So, it's a language rich content, which is really good for generative AI. And it's a perfect vertical kind of is what we're talking about with simulation based training and coaching.
Yeah. So what you mentioned, not just around insights is this fact that we're looking for actionable insights, right? And this rich data environment that call centers kind of provide, and just the way that we look at performance in this type of a world gives us so much information to build these kind of things, but then we have to make sure we're getting something great out of it. So maybe you can talk a little bit about how you actually train AI and why this environment gives us not just information about what's happening, but leads to actionable information.
No, yeah, that's a great point. It's helpful to know kind of where performance needs are, or kind of, having good data on what's actually happening, but then turning that into actions is really where the value comes in. And being able to train different types of models and different types of processes to, one, be able to look at information such as, a recorded call and see how, and then be able to, ingest different QA information on how they're doing within those calls. That really allows us to reduce training time by making a more targeted application of what we're trying to do. By seeing, hey, this agent has a different performance need versus these other agents. That allows us to have a more targeted approach, so that we can, one, revolutionize how customers are interacted and improve overall efficiency. Because, one, we can minimize creation time to create the content that these agents need to practice, and we can accomplish more with less by prioritizing time to do targeting of things that people need to improve on.
Right. Taking actual data that says this was good, this was bad, training a model to learn from those things, spit out true exercises that people can use, and then actually view that performance again afterwards to show that actual impact on what's happening.
Exactly. Yeah. And kind of tracking that over time allows us to really, kind of iterate and create a feedback loop, and really understand not only how to better create simulations, but be able to make it more personalized and say, hey, we want to use our time as efficiently as possible. We want to use the agent's time as efficiently as possible. We want to bring value as quickly as possible. And that's really where that intelligence helps drive that forward.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is AI has always been this really interesting thing to me. I've never seen people, and I've talked about this before, I've never seen people buy technology before without an application. And AI seems to be that thing that people need it, even though they don't know how to apply it. But you're looking at this in terms of real world applications of AI. And I know you've been kind of watching the progress of that through a bunch of different places, but how do you see that as kind of AI getting more and more ingrained into our lives, the lives of most industries out here? And what do you see as is this something that's going to stick around, and how does it kind of evolve?
Oh, for sure. It's a tool that's here to stay. It's extremely powerful and extremely useful, and we're just seeing exponential growth based upon it. And, kind of a great example I like to point towards is, schools. At the beginning, teachers were kind of very nervous about this tool for cheating and things like that, but they very quickly switched, they banned it at first. And then, later on, they realized, hey, this is going to be such a powerful tool. We need to teach these students how to use it and use it correctly. So, they kind of switched their positions and really work to encourage it. So it's really interesting to see the different applications of it and kind of how it's revolutionizing so many different areas. But at the same time, you need to think about the actual application, and kind of what you were saying before is many people are purchasing AI before they really have a use case for it. And it's a data-driven process, and I feel like a lot of people kind of forget that AI is only as smart as the data that it's built upon and the intent that you're using it for. So being able to understand the holistic part of the problem, understand the information that you need in order to drive those insights, and then finally be able to create an outcome from the vision of what you're starting out at the beginning, so to speak.
Yeah. And I think that outcome is so huge from the way that I look at it is, did we get where we needed to? Did adding this kind of technology did it make things faster? Did it make things easier? And how do we measure if that is the case, right? Did we get better results? Do we actually have ways to feed this back into the system? And did we spend our time wisely, or was this just something that we wanted to try and get through? So it's interesting to see the starting point of what are we trying to do? How do we implement AI to get there? And then did we actually get the results that we meant to do?
Exactly. And, AI is so new, and so many different applications that are popping up every day. New models are being published. So there's a lot of research and development in different areas that, needs to be done. And it is currently being done. And we're excited to do it in this area and kind of see how we can leverage it for this specific use case. because it's the forefront of this technology. We're very early in AI, and yet we're seeing so many benefits from it. But there's a lot of unknowns of what it's capable of, which direction it's going to move in, because previously, 5 years ago, there was still AI out there. People were using it, but it was less of a generative aspect. It was a lot more of, scoring and more numerical based. But we've kind of seen this huge explosion in kind of the more text generative aspect and other things such as image and things like that. But it's really cool to kind of see what direction things are going to go in and kind of being on that frontier as it pushes forward.
Yeah. Yeah. So, so using AI, specifically generative AI, and kind of our thoughts around continuous improvement and coaching, this is really the first big project that you've been given and that you're working on here at SymTrain. So when you're looking at how relevant these things are in the market now, how do you kind of work with our customers and an end user to actually understand how we fit these things together and make sure that we're thinking about it in the right way?
Yeah, no, that's a great point, and it's exciting because there's so much enormous potential in this space and working with these customers. And I think the best way to describe it is that in order to really gain that value is to work as partners more than a client relationship. You need to have that partnership to say, hey, we need to understand what it is you want to solve, what the information you have that we can utilize in order to do it. And be able to drive real and measurable outcomes. It's a fantastic application of an evolving technology in this space, in this area, to not only be able to evaluate agents on how their performance goes in audio and transcript and all these different applications, but then to provide a way for, hey, we have a way for you to improve, and we want to know what is important to you on those performance metrics. What are you seeing on your side so that we can better iterate on our artificial intelligence? Because again, it's only as smart as we can teach it to be, and us trying to guess what our different customers want. We need to have that open communication and work with them as partners. So that makes it a lot more of an interactive process, which is great.
Yeah, yeah, I agree, and obviously near and dear to my heart on getting all of our feedback from our customers. That's where I live every day. But I think what's been really interesting looking at starting to use this generative AI and where it's really leading us and where it's leading our users is more around this concept of coaching. So we've worked with our customers with coaching as a deployment strategy and a use case for quite a while now, but it's been a little bit more of a manual process, right? We're looking at what does it actually mean to coach someone? What does it mean to understand what their problems are, to understand where somebody is struggling, but then actually get them the help that they need to move forward and improve those problems. And coaching, as we define it, is really looking at your tenured agents, your folks that are on the floor, your folks that are actually doing the majority of the work and are creating most of the data that's coming in, which makes it this insanely data-rich area, like you were mentioning, Reece. So you get feedback on onboarding agents, on new people that are in role, but looking at this data across what we've got from existing customers is really the point where we realize we can make such a huge impact, but also a point where our customers' plans don't always work out as well, right? That there may not be a process in place or a tool in place that allows you to understand what's happening and create specific exercises and content to adjust what's happening there, which is why this concept of coaching is so big here and an area where we can help and adapt pretty quickly. It means we've got to be able to know what are the trends that are happening right now. How do we actually get in and solve things? And then how do we measure things in a contact center environment over time to ensure that the exercises and the things that we're doing are really making sense? So it helps results-based, it helps the employees actually grow, develop, learn new skills, whatever that may be within the call center that you're actually looking to kind of attain there. So we've been going through this. We've been doing this kind of manually, but a lot of these challenges that we're trying to address is kind of what we're thinking about here with GenAI and coaching. So when you think about this, Reece, and the challenges that we're looking to overcome, what are we doing to try and tackle some of this and make it easier for our customers to actually change behavior, get the results they need, and use this technology to do so?
Yeah, no, and I think in the description of being able to do coaching, we have those insights now that we can give manual coaching and tell people, all right, hey, we can see that you're not doing it great at this. These are ways to improve on it. What we really want to do is bring intelligence to it and make it a data-driven process, as we mentioned before. Is that we want to give a pathway for improvement automatically. We want to say not only are we seeing areas in which you can improve, that hey, you might want to change the way you approach this, hey, adding, maybe don't do this, rather than kind of telling it in a more manual sense. We want to automate that and make an intelligent way to kind of not only say, hey, your opening in this conversation is not great. Here's a better way to do it. Here's some ways to practice that and to actually have that measurable improvement going forward. So, I'm gonna steal a quote from you, Liz. Is that I've heard you say this before. Is it's kind of completing that last mile of coaching, not only getting the evaluation of agents and where they need to improve, but giving them a pathway for improvement and giving that in an automated way that can scale. Because if we're doing it a manual way, you can't have a coach tens of thousands of agents. You need to be able to disperse it and scale it in a way that's accurate and intelligent. And in that case, it's driving insights and results in that case. So
yeah, that's great. Yeah, telling people what they need to do to actually improve it and get those insights and results is huge at the end.
And so, also giving them a way to actually do it. Being able to say, hey, here's a way to practice. The areas that you need improvement on. For example, in just a sports analogy, it's you can give coaching, but if you don't go practice, it's going to be a lot different when you go out to perform. So you can tell somebody how to do it correctly, but having the actual repetition practice really does kind of drive those coaching lessons home. And being able to create that content using generative AI to make sure that, hey, what they're practicing is in line with the coaching verticals that we want them to learn. That kind of really does add a force multiplier for creating the outcomes that we want and seeing performance in game time. We want to see that actually go up. So
yeah, and I think that's where too this idea of using true data and specific data based on each of these contact centers, each of these clients, it helps show the learners that they're learning on what's real and what works and what's actually happening today. So being able to keep up with this is really important. If you're giving somebody outdated content, whether or not it may be helpful, if they know that it isn't what's working today or it isn't on what's trending, what's happening, what's really being experienced, they're going to miss out or distrust some of that information that's coming at them. So speed and accuracy and kind of keeping everything working on what we have actually happening today is huge. And it really gives us the ability to change the trajectory of these agents.
And that's another great part of how we're integrating different AI and machine learning capabilities, is that it allows us to mimic those real world experiences as close as possible, rather than us trying to hey, we're going to try to create an experience that we think is most like the real. Let's go look at all the real experiences and then craft it based upon that. And doing that in an automated way allows us to then scale, and it's great.
Yeah, I completely agree. So with that, obviously, we've been talking about this a little bit of more generalities and some of these things that are specific things that we're using, but not so much what's coming out of it yet. So, I'd love Reece to actually talk a little bit about what are we doing with machine learning, designing kind of our concept of the AI coach or coaching plans that we're going to be putting out in the market. Talk us through what we're actually building and developing here.
Yeah, for sure. I'd kind of break it down into three main areas that we're looking to kind of explore and develop right now. And the first one would be kind of an evaluation of an agent. So, this means we need to communicate with the different clients and partners. Hey, what do you want to see your agent graded on, so to speak? What is good in your mind? What is bad in your mind? And do we have examples of those? Do we have calls which we can point to and say, hey, here is an instance where an agent is performing how we want to? And do we have examples of where agents are not performing in line with maybe the standard? So being able to take that information in, ingest it, and then having a new agent that maybe you don't have that information on, and being able to evaluate, hey, how is this agent doing? What are the areas that they need to improve on? What are the areas that they're good at? And how can we use what they're good at to help other agents improve in the machine learning and AI systems? So, kind of building out in designing how we're going to evaluate performance really does drive a lot of the later processes, because, again, it's a data-driven process. That's the foundational element that kind of drives coaching all the way through, whether it's the recommendation systems of, what sims you need to complete, the assignments of that, or the actual generation of the sims and overall. Kind of the second one is what I was just mentioning on sim generation. So, being able to analyze calls, and again, taking those good examples and bad examples of calls, and, applications of instances of where metrics are done well or bad. We want to be able to create exercises and imitate experiences that allow for improvement in those areas, or be able to generate, hey, this is a good example of when somebody is conducting empathy, or this is a good example of somebody bringing resolution to a call. So that's kind of where most of the generative AI aspects are centered around, is, hey, we need to be able to generate a simulation where, one, we have a correct script, going off of what the client wants, the agent wants, in that case, but also, all other aspects of, hey, we need to be able to generate a way to evaluate this metric that we're actually targeting with this simulation. And then finally, kind of later on in the roadmap, but we're very excited about, is kind of getting more of a dynamic response, so that in a simulation, as you're interacting with the simulation, it can adapt to, not only what you're saying and communicating with it in the simulation, or how you're performing, but also, incorporate those historical data points that, hey, we know this agent needs to work on these areas. And as you're going through the simulation, not necessarily saying, oh, you didn't do enough empathy in this, try again, for example, but being able to have the responses that you're working with in the simulation be kind of catered to kind of a more guardrails and pushing you towards the direction that you want to go, rather than kind of sharp corrections. And we've seen that is a little bit more natural, and that kind of imitates more real life scenario, which is really what we're aiming for. So kind of between, evaluation of agents, generation of content, and simulations, and then finally, doing a dynamic type response of kind of putting up those guardrails and, really coaching you in a soft touch in the right direction is how we're really incorporating it at a high level.
That's great. That's great. And I think, I hear about understanding what's wrong, creating exercises to help with what's wrong, and then guiding the agent in kind of a safe but tailored space to be able to make sure that they're getting to where they need to in these trainings. Maybe you can talk a little bit too about assignment of this kind of thing. How do we take that concept from we understand what's wrong to getting the right kind of information to those agents, and how that fits within a coaching plan?
Yeah, so kind of what we're designing in this case is that coaching plans are going to be completely unique and catered towards the individual. As we've said, is that we want to incorporate a personalized way for an agent to improve, so that they're working on the things that they need to. So in that case, we're going to be generating content for coaching exercises, and then once we've determined the proficiencies that they need to work on, then we work to, kind of do a matching protocol to understand, hey, these simulations are going to provide the most benefit for this agent in this case. So we're going to build a coaching plan around those simulations and then assign it in that case. So, working not only on, it's kind of the incorporation of a lot of these different aspects. Hey, we're evaluating the agent for what they're good at, and then later on in the pipeline, we're generating content that we know tackles those evaluation metrics. And then finally, the delivery of it. Hey, when we're actually interacting in the simulation, we want to have the correct information for the simulation to respond in correct ways, rather than just a dynamic response of, hey, we can see in this one conversation you didn't do an opening. We want to know, hey, usually they skip over this point. And so when they come in there, be sure to note, hey, nudge them in the right direction. So that's kind of where that assignment and kind of all of it kind of really connects in that use case.
Great. That's great. And if we're coming in ready to get started with something like this, what's your dream scenario for the data that you're going to get from a customer? And what do you use each of those pieces of data for?
Yeah, of course. Call recordings is always super important, because that's just kind of the base data point of, hey, this is an example of the agent on a call, along with, seeing how they interact. Kind of in combination with that, we'd love to see an evaluation of how the agent performed on that call, whether it's an AQA metric, quality assurance metrics, some information from the client on this is what we want to see out of a call. And then this is an example of when it didn't happen. We need examples of when it happened, when it didn't happen, and kind of having that back and forth conversation. It's a dialogue. It's not, hey, here's the data, go do it. It's, hey, we need to discuss, what do you want to see out of it? What are examples? Because again, all these different groups are very different in the different areas that they tackle, kind of what they want to see out of it, what they're actually evaluating their agents on. So, I think that the best outcome would be coming with an open dialogue and a willingness to discuss, hey, this is what we have, this is what we're willing to, this is what we want to see out of it, and then how do we get there, and then kind of have that conversation. So, but again, just to kind of put a more definitive what we would be looking for, and it is definitely call recordings, evaluation metrics, and that's kind of the base level of it.
Oh, that's great. That's great. And I think that, when I look at this, one of the hard things for people to kind of get over, but is really important when you're using this kind of a product, is that you're really here trusting your own data, right? Looking at what are the things that happen in calls that actually lead to the outcomes that you want? What made somebody resolve that problem? What made somebody close that sale? What made sure that they showed the right level of empathy, or that they got all the verification done? What are people really doing that's getting the results that you need? And being able to provide data that's enough for you to really trust it helps to generate something that you're going to be able to use really quickly and know that it's going to be helping your agents. If you've ever been around a contact center, you've definitely seen all of the scripting, all of the things that we kind of assume work, and that may just not be what's happening on the floor. And it doesn't mean that you're not getting the results that you want. So I think getting enough of this information and putting it together in a way that helps anyone trust that what's coming out is actually going to be what you need to be practicing on is huge. And the other thing that I think when I implement this is make these sound real life. You don't want it to sound scripted. You don't want everybody to practice the happy path all the time, especially tenured agents that know what they're doing for the most part, helping them get practice on difficult phone calls, on customers that aren't responding as you may hope that they respond. Having actual experience of what works in those situations and creating scenarios and allowing our coaching system to create those scenarios that help you practice a difficult conversation, something that isn't going quite the way you want it. That's really what's going to make the difference and what's going to move the needle on how you're implementing coaching and the results that you're getting out of it.
100%. And that's what's so exciting about seeing artificial intelligence in this specific area is, it's catered towards ingesting data that, you kind of just described, and being able to glean that information that, is in a more manual sense of, hey, we may not know that this particular aspect is what's driving a lot of the good performance that we're seeing, and being able to identify those different types of patterns and whatnot is a perfect mathematical problem for AI to tackle with different models and approaches and research and development. So it's an extremely data rich environment that is really perfect for implementation of AI to kind of drive those insights forward.
Amazing. Amazing. Well, thank you for joining today, Reece. I know we're right at kind of our time for the day, but I think there's a lot more to come from SymTrain on generative AI, on coaching. I know I'm sure we'll have you back on this platform again soon to be digging into this a little bit deeper with us. But I just want to thank you for joining today. I want to thank everybody for attending. If you have any questions, you can reach me at liz@symtrain.com. Very easy to find me. So after that, we'll be hosting a few more of these episodes, and just thank you everybody for joining today. Let us know how we can help.
Awesome. Thanks for having me, Liz.
Yep. Thanks, Reece. Everybody have a great afternoon. Enjoy your week, and we'll be hearing from you again soon.